Hello everyone, I am Amit Dharnia, Assistant Professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering of Arya College of Engineering and IT, Kukas, Jaipur. Today we will discuss about the clutch used in the vehicle. So let's start. First of all, the definition of a clutch. Like that, the clutch is a device used in the transmission system of a motor vehicle to engage and disengage the engine to the transmissions. And a clutch is a mechanical device that engages or disengages the power transmission, especially from driving shaft to driven shaft. The functions of a clutch. The basic functions of a clutch are like when the clutch is engaged, the power flows from the engine to the wheels through the transmission system and the vehicle moves. And when the clutch is disengaged, the power is not transmitted to the wheels and the wheel stops while the engine is still running. And the clutch is kept engaged when the vehicle is moving. And the clutch also permits the gradual taking up of the load. When properly operated, it prevents jerk motions of the vehicle. And when the clutch is disengaged, when starting the engine, when shifting the gears, when stopping the vehicle, and when idling the engine. So these are the four terms when we will disengage the clutch. The basic principle of the clutch. The clutch works on the principle of frictions. Like when two friction surfaces are brought in contact with each other and pressed, they are united due to the friction between them. And the friction between three surfaces depend upon area of surface, applied pressure, and coefficient of frictions. The two surfaces can be separated and brought into contact when required. One surface is considered as driving member and another is as a driven member. The driving member is kept rotating always. The basic requirement of a clutch: to torque transmission, having gradual engagement, high heat dissipations, dynamically balanced, vibration damping, small in size, having free pedal play, easy to operate, and light in weight. The main part of clutch are the driving member, driving member, and operating members. Driving member has a flywheel which is mounted on the engine crankshaft. A disc is bolted to flywheel which is known as pressure plate or driving disc. The driving member, driven member, is a disc called clutch plate. This plate can slide freely to and fro on the clutch shaft. And the operating member consists of a pedal or lever which can be pressed to engage the driving and driven plates. This is a diagram of the clutch in which driving shaft on which flywheel is mounted, and there is a driven shaft on which clutch plate is mounted, having the friction lining, and the operating medium which consists of the pedal, linkage, the thrust bearing, and the releasing bearing, and pressure plate having the springs. Types of clutch. The clutch is consistently classified in 6 types. First one is friction clutch. which is subclassified, like single plate, multiplate, in which multiplate is also classified in two ways, wet or dry, and cone clutch, which may be external or internal, and semi-centrifugal clutch and centrifugal clutch, electromagnetic clutch, vacuum clutch, and hydraulic clutch. Single plate clutch. It has only one clutch plate which is mounted on the splines of the clutch shaft. The flywheel is mounted on the engine crankshaft and rotates with it. The pressure plate is bolted on the flywheel through clutch springs. It is free to slide on the clutch shaft when the clutch pedal is operated. When the clutch is engaged, the clutch plate is gripped between the flywheel and the pressure plate due to the friction between the flywheel, clutch plate and pressure plate. The clutch plate revolves with the flywheel. As the clutch plate revolves, the clutch shaft also revolves. Clutch shaft is connected to the transmissions. Thus, the engine power is transmitted to the gear shaft. And when the clutch is disengaged, when the clutch is pressed, the pressure plates move back against the force of the spring, and the clutch plate becomes free between the flywheel and the pressure plate. Thus, the flywheel remains rotating as long as engine is running, and the clutch shaft speed reduces slowly and finally it stops rotating. As soon as the clutch pedal is pressed, the clutch is said to be disengaged. This is the layout of a single plate clutch. Multiplate clutch. Multiplate clutch consists of a number of clutch plates instead of one clutch plate, as in the case of single plate clutch. The increased number of friction surfaces obviously increases the capacity of clutch to transmit torque. The plates are alternately fitted to the engine shaft and gearbox shaft. Each of the alternate plates slides in grooves on the flywheel and other slides on splines of the pressure plate. The clutch plate engaged with the flywheel and torque is transmitted flywheel from the through friction facing to the transmission clutch shaft. Hence, rear wheel of the car also rotates. When the clutch pedal is pressed, the release bearing acts on the pressure plate's diaphragm and moves the pressure plates away from the flywheel. This release bearing the clamping force on the facing plate and separator plates and allows flywheel to free without turning the clutch shaft. Now clutch plate disengage with the flywheel and the drive is no longer transmitted. When the pedal is released, the spring tension forces the pressure plates, the clutch plates and the separator plates against the flywheel, clamping all components together, and again start transmitting the torque. The cone clutch consists of friction surface on the form of cone. The engine shaft consists of a female cone. The male cone is mounted on the spline clutch shaft. It has friction surface on the conical portions. The main cone can slide on the clutch shafts. When the clutch is engaged, the friction surface of the male cone in the contact that of the female cone due to the force spring, and when the clutch pedal is pressed, the male cone slides against the spring force and the clutch is disengaged. Centrifugal clutch uses centrifugal force instead of spring force for keeping it in engaged positions. Also, it does not require clutch pedal to operating the clutch. The clutch is operated automatically depending upon the engine speed. and the vehicle can be tied in any gear by pressing the accelerator pedal, stopped in gear without stalling the engine, and the vehicle can be start. Electromagnetic clutch. In this type of clutch, the flywheel consists of winding. The current supplied in the winding from the battery or dynamo. When the current passes through the winding, it produces an electromagnetic field which attracts the pressure plate, thereby engaging the clutch. When the supply is cut off, the clutch is disengaged and the transmissions of torque is cut off. Vacuum clutch. It consists of a vacuum cylinder with pistons, solenoid operate valves, reservoirs and non-return valves. The reservoirs is connected to the engine manifold through a non-returning valves. Vacuum cylinder is connected to the reservoir through solenoid operated valves, and the solenoid is operated from the battery, and the circuit incorporates a switch which is placed in the gear lever. Movement of the piston is transmitted by linkage to the clutch, causing it to disengage. When the driver is not operating the gear lever, the switch is open and the clutch remains engaged due to the force of spring. Hydraulic clutch is operated in the same way as the vacuum clutch, only the difference is that it is operated by oil pressures, where the vacuum clutch is operated by through the vacuum itself. The oil from the reservoirs is pumped into the accumulator tank. The accumulator tank is connected to the cylinder through the control valve, and the control valve is electrically controlled. When the driver holds the gear lever to change the gear, the switch is operated to open the control valve, admitting the oil under the pressure to the cylinder. Due to the oil pressure, the pistons moves as soon as the lever of the switch is open, which close the control valve and clutch is engaged. So these are the type of the clutch and their operating mechanisms. Thank you.